Hey guys, Brian with Buffalo Beer Reviews, back with something I haven't done in a little while, and we're going to do a brew day. I'm still kind of new to this, full disclosure. Hasn't even been about a year. It's been, April will be about a year, so we're coming up on like 11 months. Today we're going to do a Citra smash type brew, one hop, and I mean, in all honesty, it's got 13 pounds of Maris Otter. It's got some Carafoam for some head retention, and it's only got 8 ounces of honey malt just for a little bit of color. But I mean, that's as really as simple as it gets. We're gonna do a 4 ounce Citra Whirlpool edition, and that's it. There's no bittering hops. Everything's going to be on the Whirlpool side at 180 degrees for a half hour. And then we're going to split the other 4 ounces of the 8 ounce bag into 2 double dry hops. So 2 ounces in the first and 2 ounces in the second. You can kind of see, like, this was one of the other beers that just finished on tap. You can kind of see the difference between, like, the recipes. This is nice. This is something a little on the simplified side, and I'm looking forward to trying to get as much ABV out of this as possible. The poundage is up a little bit because I'm really trying to shoot for something in the high 6s to maybe a 7% ABV brew. But we'll see how that goes. I'm going to be mashing in 152 degrees for 60 minutes. I'm just coming up to the 164 degree mark, strike water temperature. So I'm going to get to milling my ingredients and mashing in. You can kind of see I've got them kind of ready to go. 10, 11, 12, 13 pounds of Maris Otter. I've already got the 8 ounces of honey malt ready to go, and then I measured out. Actually, I went with a pound, 16 ounces of the Carafoam as well. So that's really a pretty simple grain bill in my past experiences. The back side of my brew space, and then honestly, I got a little bit of Citra. It was on sale. So I got 8 ounces of Citra, and I'm going to use those. They've been in the freezer for a little bit. You know what I mean? So I'll set up. We'll get milling and we'll get doughing in. Oh, and I've got to do my my water treatments as well. So I'm going to do 6 grams of calcium chloride, 6 grams of gypsum, and 4.5 ounces or mLs, I'm sorry, of lactic acid for a target pH of 5.2. Now, these are the recommendations from Beersmith, so that's what I've been kind of trying to go by these days. You know what I mean? All right, on to milling, then we'll dough in. All right, gypsum, 6 grams. Try to do this one-handed here. I usually just use my brew day sheet as a little bit of a, and 6 grams of calcium chloride. I have a little bit 7. Here, I'll brush off a little bit. 12, okay. I have a Camden tablet crushed in there as well. I'm gonna add this to the strike water real quick, let that kind of circulate around with the lactic acid, and then we'll dough in. All right, we're all in. I'm going to try to get this all submerged. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll take my measuring cup here and I'll pull some from the drain, get it on top, and go from there. But I'm going to cut away. I'm going to get this all wet, make sure there's no dough balls, stir it really nice and thoroughly, and I'll cut back in with a temperature check. And in all honesty, guys, that took me 30 seconds. So you can kind of see the consistency here. It's not too dry. There's no lumps. It looks really nice to me. So I'm keeping a little mental kind of timer in my head. Where's my thermometer? Now I have a regular thermometer that I bought from More Beer the other week that I will just put in here just so I can keep like a quick eye spot check on these things while I'm going. But let me see here. I'm shooting for 152. Awesome. So I'll scale back my thermometer on the or the temperature control on the brew kettle, but I'm really happy with that. And we are at 10:52 in the morning. So I'm gonna set my timer, and while that is kind of mashing in, I'm going to clean up my workspace. I usually use the box that my supplies came from as my brew day garbage. There's my last one. You can see the hot bags and all of the shit. So I'll take that out. I'll take my old spent grains from the last batch out, take that out, clean this all up, get my hop additions scaled out, and that's it. I'll pick back up in a moment. Okay, so we're mashed in. We're a couple minutes in. I'm going to give it to about the 15-minute mark before I check the pH. I have my pH meter here. I'll just get it ready to go over here. So again, we're shooting for about 5.2. Put the water additions in before we mashed in. That was off camera. So, you've got some downtime on brew day, an hour for the mash. You've got an hour for the boil. I've got PBW inside of my fermenter. That can be emptied closer to the end of the boil. That can be getting ready to go. Once I get my grain basket out of the mash, I can use my other kick bucket to kind of just keep everything clean and organized. You got your hoses. I've got my little mop over here in case I got any spills. Little things like I've kind of grown in terms of my equipment. So this little dinky shelf unit is not cutting it anymore. I've got some grain baskets and buckets and stuff like that. So I'll find a new solution for that. But what I like to do while I'm mashing in is I like to organize my hops into all of the next stages. So I've got a 4-ounce Citra hop at 180 degrees for 30 minutes. So I've got my trusty little, cup here. I'll measure out 4 ounces from the bag. What I'll also do is I got this little vacuum sealer on super sale, which was amazing. So what I'll end up doing too is I'll measure out my dry hop additions and throw them in the kegerator until they're ready to be used. So we've got a 2 ounce and a 2 ounce. So I'm gonna do my 4 ounce measurement into there, my 2 ounce and my 2 ounce for my dry hops. I'll get them vacuum sealed, and pretty much like I can put the scale away, the hops will be all squared away, and I can just focus on other aspects of the brew day. There you go. I've got my 4 ounces of my Whirlpool edition, and I've got my, let's see if you can see it better without the light. 2 ounce dry hop number 1, 2 ounce dry hop number 2. And like I said, we've got some downtime, so I'll start doing some cleanup. And when I hit about that 15-minute mark in the mash in, we'll do our pH adjustments. And just a quick recheck of our mash. $152-ish. Good. Looks like we have about 20 minutes left in the mash. Honestly, been very happy with the way everything's gone today. The kind of the grain bill was nice. It went into my boil kettle very easily. Cleanup was easy. I got my yeast out of the refrigerator. Sorry, that was something that I didn't tell you about before. I'm using Burlington ale yeast, White Labs 095 today. So I'm getting that out of the refrigerator, getting it up to room temp, getting it there. I've got my hydrometer ready for some gravity readings. I don't need the real OG today. That'll be for when it's alcoholic, but you can kind of see. Done some housework in my downtime. Got my bucket cleaned out. I got my my chiller and my hop spider initially washed off. I usually wash them off after brew day, obviously, but it's just nice, they might have been collecting dust or whatnot, so just rinsing them off in the sink and getting them ready to go. That's my hot out into the sink, and then this is my cold supply. My cold supply, 2, and then my hot from there back into the sink once I'm on that stage. But we'll go over that. Very good. All right, our 1 hour mash is complete. I'm going to pull this basket up and start the sparging process. All right, my grain basket's lifted up. It's resting on the little feet here. You can hear it, the wort draining through the grain bed into the brew kettle. And kind of check it out, you know what I mean? So what we're gonna do is, it's really difficult to kind of see the gallon markers because of, the darkness and the shade that this produces. What I'm going to do is, forgot to kind of tell you, while I was mashing in, I had a pot of water heating up on the stove for my sparge water. So it's about 170 degrees, and I'll use my Pyrex to sparge over the grains to wash all that sugary goodness down and into the boil pot. so we are, say, a little bit more efficient, but also that we can bring our boil volumes back up. The grains absorb a lot of the water, so we want to replace the absorbed water from the grain back through into the boil kettle. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time sparging, a couple of the quarts at a time through the grain bed. I'll ramp up the temperature to boil temp while I'm doing this, so it's heating as I'm sparging, and we can kind of reduce some time there. And we'll pick back up with the boil, and maybe about the boil at around the 20-minute left mark, where my wort chiller and the hop spider are going to go in for sanitization purposes, and we'll go from there. Okay, guys, so my sparge is complete. You can kind of see right along here that this is the 7-gallon marker, and then down here is the 6.5 marker, and I'm just under it, just under 6.5 gallons post sparge. And I plan on boiling that with loss down to about 5.5 gallons. My mode of thinking is, by the time I'm done with my 5.5 gallons, give or take maybe a hair bit less, into the fermenter, there will be some trub and some sort of dry hop loss to that volume, and I should hopefully end up with about 5 gallons. But I'm going to take a quick little sample of this, let it cool off, and I'm going to take in a gravity reading just to kind of see where I'm at. Once I'm done with that, here's my grain basket in the sink. This is the sexy, glamorous part of home brewing that nobody really likes to videotape or talk about. But I've got like a little seed scooper here, because the grains really do retain a lot of heat for a long time. So I'll use that little grain scooper, seed scooper, to scoop out those grains, throw them into the kick bucket, and over the next couple of days while the beer is fermenting, the dehumidified sort of environment down here will take a lot of the moisture out of those spent grains, make it a little bit lighter for me to then scoop out into the garbage and throw it away. So that's what I'm going to work on now. I'll get my my gravity sample cooling off, and we'll get those into the bucket. Boom. All right, let's see what this gravity reading is. Pre-boil gravity. 1061. So I don't really have any numbers here for my pre-boil gravity, but I'm thinking 1061 is in the direction of where I want to be. So I'm gonna keep good notes and go from there. 1061. I'll see what my post-boil gravity is. Cool. All right, guys, we are at a boil. It is just at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. This is going to be a 60-minute boil. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this boil affects my gravity readings, because I'm still kind of trying to get used to tracking all this information and seeing how it betters my my repeatability and my reliability and stuff like that. But I got my little makeshift vent here. It's putting the steam outside of the house. Just recently started to brew indoors, so with the electric system, it's nice. There's no combustion, there's no carbon monoxide worries or anything like that. And that's about it. I am currently having my last brew. This is, which one was this? This is my Cashmere and Galaxy brew. Just kind of hit that sweet spot in the carbonation, and so enjoyable. This came in at 5.91%. And that was a really great brew day as well. I wish you guys could smell this thing. So I'm looking forward. I'm thinking this Citra brew is going to be a little bit on the clearer side. There's no flaked components. There's no flaked wheat. There's no flaked oats. There's no white wheat malt. There's no anything. It's just straight grain with a little bit of honey malt. So I'm thinking that this is going to be a little bit more on that really clear orange body. But you guys are going to have to check back on the channel for it in a couple of weeks after it's done fermenting to see what it looks like. I'll do a follow-up video with with how the beer turned out. These 4 ounces of Citra are just amazingly potent. The reason I've done a couple of different Citra brews, in all honesty. I know there's some people out there that have been doing or have been reporting some off flavors and some off aromas about this cat pee. I'll be wholly honest with you. I've used Citra in my first wort hop editions. I've used Citra at 30 and 20 minute hop editions. I've used Citra at 10, 5, flame out, Whirlpool, dry hop. I have yet to experience any off flavors with the Citra. That's why I kind of keep using it until then. I doubt that I'll have any sort of off flavors with a Whirlpool hop stand sort of steeping today, but you never know. There's quite a good vegetal mass to this hop edition. Do you know what I mean? So you never know, and that's why we take lots of good notes and try to either figure out where we went wrong or say, yes, let's duplicate that all the way down the line. So we'll pick back up with the Whirlpool edition of the Citra. Okay, guys, so we are done with the boil. I gave it a couple extra minutes just to kind of recoup the time it took to come back up to boil once I put the wort chiller and the hop spider in. So it's a fine little game. You've got to turn on the cold water. I usually put my ladle in there at the end of the boil to sanitize, and I leave it in there because I don't have a whirlpooling system right now. So it's hard for me to kind of agitate up the wort because there's the temperature sensor is down at the bottom, and there's varying degrees of layers of temperature in this kettle. So I leave the ladle in there. It's already sanitized from the boil, and then I just give it a little agitation every now and then to get the cold wort circulated around so it's an accurate temperature. But we are at 179, 180, and I'm going to throw the 4 ounces. All right, guys, we just reached the end of our half-hour hop stand, our steeping step. I'm going to turn off this fan so that we don't get any more noise. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to get ready to cool the wort, right? So I'm going to, first off, I'm going to drop the temperature on my boil kettle so that when we are, dropping the temperature of the wort, it's not actively trying to rewarm it back up. You know what I mean? So, and I'm going to go all the way down to like 50 degrees just to totally take out any sort of rewarming process. But why I'm doing this on my kettle is that instead of just turning my kettle off, I'm using the thermometer, the digital thermometer readout to really get an accurate display of what the wort temperature is right now. Do you know what I mean? So I have it set for like 59 degrees. I'm going to start with the cold water right over here. It's going to start transferring the heat from the wort to the wort chiller and then out via warm water into the sink. So here's my cold water supply. And I'm going to take the hop spider out that's full of this huge hop mass. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but the water level is right up to here. The hops might only be down to here, but the water level is all the way up to here. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of some centrifugal force to kind of force. It's like a 400 micron metal mesh screen. Do you know what I mean? So it's like there is, it's hard to get all of that liquid out without, you know, trying. So I'm putting all of this liquid that's full of that hop sort of goodness and the flavors and some of the bitterness back into the wort. One, so that I can preserve the volume, and two, you know, we have a more sort of volume efficient brew day. Like, I don't want to just brew a beer and then waste, you know, 500 mLs of it just because I didn't take the time to empty out the hop spider. And I can see right here, we're at about 5 gallons, give or take, in the brew kettle. So I think our end result's going to be a fairly decent gravity reading. I took an end of the gravity reading, or end of the boil reading, and I got like a 1065, which I was fairly happy with. I mean, I really wanted to be closer to like 1070, but honestly, I was very happy with 1065. I'm hoping for a little bit lower final gravity than what Beer Smith is predicting. That way I can get a little bit drier sort of Citra beer and a little bit higher ABV. Let's try to get all of this back in here before I call it the day. And I'll edit the rest of this out. And it looks like we got about 5.5 gallons back into the brew kettle. I'm gonna let that cool off. All right. You can kind of see what it looks like. It's still really hot. You see, it's like a liquid vegetal mass, and it's still coming out, but not bad. You can kind of see here, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. We got our 7-gallon marker, got our 6-gallon marker, and like this is that's 7, 6.5, 6. So we're at like 5.5 gallons on the brew kettle, which is cool. And if you look at the digital display, it says we're at 70, but that's why I leave the ladle in there. So the thermal port is at the very bottom. So if you give this a good stir, watch. If you give that a good agitation and a good stir, okay, you go from 71 up to 110. So you're looking at a 45 degree difference, which is substantial. You think, oh, I'm at pitching temperature. Let's throw it into the fermenter. I'm at pitching temperature, and then you're 40 degrees off. That's kind of why in my setup, I don't have a recirculating or like a Whirlpool sort of pump setup. I've got to do things like this to keep my numbers accurate. I just thought that would be something that you might like to see. So I'll just keep kind of stirring this all the way down until it gets to be about 70 degrees. And we're still at 112, 111. You know what I mean? I'll show you when I'm pitching into there. And I throw it back up on the stand, and we pitch our yeast. All right, guys, we are done with our wort chilling. We're at about 69 degrees. Nice. Anyway, I'm going to just allow the wort to settle for about 2 minutes, just to allow the Whirlpool sedimentation to kind of gravitate towards the bottom, so that when I transfer into the fermenter, that, you know, maybe we can leave a little bit of the gunk behind. But it's really no big deal. That should be about a 30-second thing. And there we are, guys. Transferring into the fermenter. Sanitized at the bottom. The valve is closed clearly. And you can kind of see what we're looking at here. We are looking at this very amber, burnt amber-ish looking wort being transferred into the fermenter. Looks really nice. But what I've learned from the last couple of batches this year is, you know, what's coming out of the brew kettle really does change over the next couple of days. The sedimentation will settle out, and the yeast really will transform the look and the character of the beer over the next, you know, week and a half. So really cool. I'm just gonna let it finish up, filling my fermenter up. I'm gonna pitch the yeast and just put the top on. I mean, that's really about it for me, guys. So that's it for me. It's by no means a professional operation here. And by no means do I pretend to be a professional or know what the hell I'm even talking about half the time. But if you guys think that this looks like something you'd like to do, I would wholly encourage you to do it on your own. It's a ton of fun, and it's something to do, something to occupy your time safely and entertain yourself immensely. But that's it for me. Check back on the channel, or my YouTube channel, in about maybe 2 weeks, where we will have this on tap, and I'll pull a sample and we will talk about it. I'll show you guys what it looks like. I really do appreciate you guys taking a look at my my brew day a little bit down in the basement, and I will see you guys in the next one. Cheers.